Overheard my fiancée telling her friends that she's only marrying me for my money and wealth. So I dumped that gold digger bitch, canceled everything and cut her off financially. The sweet taste of justice served me piping hot in the form of nearly $10,000 settlement. Before I get into my actual narration, I need to provide some background. I am 29 years old now, with an MBA and a very cushy position in my father's company. I know this makes me sound like some kind of snobby rich kid, but hear me out. Growing up, we really weren't doing well. We struggled a lot and the family was in serious debt. I was young at the time, so I don't know every single detail, but my dad made a very risky loan using our house as collateral. The only thing of value that we owned since it was his grandfather's house. That loan was what helped him start up his business, and despite a rocky start, things have gotten so good. It wasn't fun when it was happening, but looking back, I'm very grateful that I wasn't born with a silver spoon of my mouth, because I personally think it made me more down to earth, and it also helped me appreciate the value of hard work. It was part of what inspired me to go out and get an MBA because I wanted to add value to what my father had built. So as much as the son and his father's company makes me sound like an untalented brat benefiting from nepotism, I'll admit I am to some degree. But I know I'm there on merit at the same time. I worked hard and put on my own effort to help the company grow. Because of this, my family is now pretty well off, and so am I, on a personal level. Because of this, I've become very financially sensible since I know we never always have had this money, so it's a big blessing. I've been very cautious when it comes to relationships because I personally feel that you have to make a lot of effort to find people who aren't shallow, and with my money, I think it's just a little bit tougher to know who is there for you and not your bank account. In my mid-20s, when things had really gone into full throttle, I dated a lot. I mean, a lot of them didn't go past the first date. I'd probably say that I only went on a third date a handful of times. I could probably count the number on one hand. Anyway, it was about 2.5 years ago that I met someone, and honestly, she was gorgeous. I saw her smile, and I had to go and say hi to her. I found out that her name was Brianna, not her real name for obvious reasons, and that she was a nurse. I think that made me find her even more attractive because it's a profession that I really respect. I asked for her number right there, and that was how things between us started. I've always been very cautious in relationships when I start one. It's with the aim of going the distance. I always try to see whether I can see my wife and someone before I even take things seriously. I think that's why I always try to make sure that my money is at most a quarter of the reason someone is with me. It'd be stupid for me to assume it doesn't make me more of a catch to women, but I don't want to find myself in a relationship with anyone who considers that to be the primary reason they're with me. I honestly didn't see any gold digger behavior with Brianna. She was smart, amazing to talk with, funny, and she just brought everything that I wanted to the table. So 2 years and some months after we met, I popped the question to her and she said yes. As we speak, Brianna is my fiancée, and it made me extremely happy when she agreed to spend the rest of her life with me. Now, I'm getting to the point of this whole thing, but before I get there was one major event that sort of has soured me, and I think it's worth mentioning here. Obviously, she got to know more about the full extent of my family's finances when we got closer and closer. She knew my family wasn't poor, and we were doing well. So a few months after the proposal, I brought up the idea of a prenup to her. Honestly, it seemed like a very reasonable discussion to have, but she apparently didn't think so. She flipped out at me. According to her, me suggesting a prenup to her was bad in 2 ways. The first was that it seemed to me that I didn't believe that our relationship was going to go the distance. Obviously, that's not the case. But even if I do 110% in the marriage, and she wakes up one day and decides she's done, I can't do anything about that. The second reason was that it meant that I didn't trust her not to try and rob me blind in the event that things didn't work out how we wanted. That's the summary of it. But we ended up going back and forth for a full hour, going to sleep mad at each other, and after spending the entire night deliberating about it, I let her know that it wasn't going to be necessary. Yes, I know that was very stupid, but I love her immensely, so I chose to let it slide because I didn't want the prenup to be the reason why we fell apart. Things got better between us quite soon after that. Now, this is the point where I really need third parties to tell me what to do. One of my fiancée's colleagues was having a barbecue, and she invited me to go along with her. I decided it would be a good chance for me to meet some of the people she worked with since she mentioned them pretty frequently. When I got there, everyone was nice to me, and it was a good time, honestly. I met a bunch of the nurses who worked alongside her on most shifts as well. At one point, I was outside chatting about sports and socks with the men. I knew she was inside gossiping with her girls, which was fine. At a point, I needed to go take a piss, so I headed back into the house through the back door. Now, I don't know how to describe it, but the back door led into a hallway which ended in the living room. Anything at the back door, you wouldn't be able to see anyone sitting in the living room, at least not until you turn the corner. It was as I was heading to the bathroom that I heard my fiancé's voice and some others, and from the first sentence, it was so clear that I was the topic of conversation. It started with him talking about how well I dress, but that seemed to naturally transition into how expensive I dress. Then my money came up. The girls were talking about how lucky she was to get someone with money, a lot of chirping and giggling, and then I heard my fiancé say something that felt like a punch in the gut. He has a lot of money, and honestly, his money is the best part of him by far. That was followed by a lot of giggling and laughing. She even added, he asked for a prenup. I said no, of course. I have to be able to cash out if things hit the rocks. Then there was a lot more laughing. At that point, I left and went back out of the house. I honestly didn't find myself needing to use the bathroom anymore. We went back home, and she noticed something was up with me, but I didn't tell her what it was until she went to bed. This happened a few days ago, and at this point, I don't know what to do. She's a great person, and I love her. A lot. But I'm fighting a battle with myself trying to figure out whether I should let it pass as stupid female gossip that she was leaning too far into, or whether this was worth canceling everything that we planned towards the wedding and kicking her out of the house. Honestly, I don't know what to do. My mind is telling me to end things because this was exactly what I never wanted. I don't know who values my money way too much. A few days ago, she was the perfect woman to me, and I hate how quickly that all changed. My heart is telling me to talk to her about it, but honestly, I can't figure it out. I appreciate all and any advice. Edit. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that I shouldn't never have compromised on the prenup, and I should have just ended things right there. A lot of you said it in an unnecessarily harsh ways, but I've got thick skin. If I had another chance, I might not have done things differently, but I do agree that I would give someone else the same advice a lot of you are giving me here. I should have actually stood my ground on that, because even if I do decide to stay with her, the comment I overheard makes me realize how important a prenup is with her. Edit. I'm inclined to agree with the comments saying that I should simply end things right now instead of taking the risk with somebody who has shown that my money is a primary interest of theirs. The only thing is, I feel like the best-case scenario might be for me to talk over the prenup with her again. I know that would safeguard me, but not necessarily make her less interested in my money. But isn't it natural that someone would appreciate someone who has a good amount of money? Edit. Okay, I've had a lot of sense talked into me. I'm still going to have the prenup discussion to see what she's going to say, but I'm ready to pull the trigger on any things. I love Brown a lot, so it's a lot easier said than done for me to let her go. I want to know that I gave things a chance. Update. Here's the update that I know a lot of you were waiting for on the story of my fiancée, who I caught telling her friends that money was the best part of me. Things have come to a close, and I'm more than happy about the way they've gone. So the first thing that I needed to do was talk to Brianna again regarding the prenup. I think it was about a week after we got back from the barbecue that I told her to sit down so we could have a discussion. I told her that we needed to discuss the prenup situation again, and just like last time, she flared up. I think it was even worse the second time around. She went on again about how it was just a sign that I didn't trust her, and that I wasn't rooting for the relationship to work. I tried to shift things to how it was more protecting my father's hard work. I owned a sizable chunk of his company, then myself, but she wasn't having it. She kept raging on, and I really did my best to get her to see my angle, but it wasn't working. I asked her whether she would marry me if I said the prenup was a must. She didn't seem to think about it long before she said that she would strongly reconsider our future together. I think it was at that point that I realized I wasn't going to win it over. I let her know that after the first time, I was going to let the prenup go, so I asked her to guess why I was bringing it back up. Understandably, she was clueless on that front, so I told her that I would help her figure it out. I asked her to look back on a discussion that she had with her nurse colleagues when we were at her friend's barbecue. She only said, "We talked about so many things. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't remember laughing and giggling with your friends as you said that my money was the best part of me? You don't remember telling them how you couldn't do a prenup with me because you won't win the jackpot in case we divorce?" At that point, it was clear that she remembered what I was talking about because she started to tremble and act extremely anxious. I was waiting for her to confirm or deny what I had said, but she didn't say anything. I prompted her to speak, but she was just looking at me while her hands were absolutely shaking. I don't know why, but that made me laugh, and I think me laughing made her turn on the waterworks. She started to cry and sob all without saying anything to me about what I had said. At that point, it was starting to piss me off that she had nothing to say and I wanted her reaction from her. So I let her know that the wedding wasn't going to happen anymore. At that point, she folded the ground and I started hearing her mumbling words like, "Please," over and over between all her tears and sniffles. I stood up, went to our room, locked the door, and went to bed. The next morning she was waiting for me, and she looked like she hadn't slept all night. As soon as she saw me, she came to me and was being extra touchy, but I shrugged her off. She started to try to explain the context of what I had overheard. She claimed that she was just trying to fit into the whole gossip girl type vibe, and she didn't mean the things that I hadn't heard her say. She claimed her friends and her colleagues for being bad influences. She claimed that my money was never a part of the reason why she fell in love with me. I believe that was likely true initially, but I feel like she started to love the money more at a point. She said that she'd sign the prenup and it wouldn't be a problem for her. She said all that, but I honestly didn't have anything to say to her. I took her hand in mine, looked her in the eye tenderly, and then slowly took the engagement ring off of her finger. I paid way too much for that to end up in no hands of someone like her. That struck a nerve. She started to cry, but it quickly devolved into cursing me out. She said I was ugly. She said I had no charm. She said my penis was small. She called me gay. She said she had slept with a guy she met at a bar because she felt like it. Really, don't know whether I believe that part or not, but it honestly doesn't matter at this point. She said my money was the only good thing about me, and she wished she had been able to milk me more. She basically pulled out every insult that she could think of, and at that point I started to laugh. That was when she began to throw things at me. As much as I wanted to be all stoic and indifferent, she started to toss some pretty dangerous things. So I retreated to the room and locked myself in. I think it was about 2 full hours later when things quieted down and I finally came out. She was gone, but she had trashed the entire place. I was furious, and in that moment, I was sure I had made the right move. I took pictures of everything that I could, and I retrieved some footage from one of the indoor cameras that I had. After that, I left the house to go sleep in a hotel because honestly it was absolute chaos, and I didn't even know where to start with a distraction. This is where I decided to start having fun. I went to her Facebook page and her Instagram page, and I looked for her to the post on each platform where she announced her engagement. Then I drafted a message. "I hate to inform you that the wedding is off and I am no longer engaged to Brianna." She admitted to just being with me for my money, and when I confronted her about this, she lost her mind and destroyed my house. "If you have any questions, ask her," which I posted as a reply to every single comment. She hates looking bad in front of people, so this part made me feel very satisfied. I then made my own post showing off the destruction that she had caused, as well as some short clips of her trashing the house when she was having her temper tantrum. I tagged her family, friends, and even the hospital where she works. This last one was for fun, and it would be nice to have a little gossip start about her among the colleagues. Her parents tried to call me several times, but I didn't bother picking up. Honestly, it sucks that I have to cut ties with them because they were lovely people, but it is what it is. She called me tens of times after I had done all of this, and the one time I picked, it was a mix of her crying and threatening to come and kill me for ruining her life. I really don't think anything I did was permanent, so she was just being dramatic. She shattered about how I humiliated her with the short clips that I had posted, and people now call her Brianna of Tarth behind her back because she was acting aggressively in the video. I found that part hilarious. She kept crying about how everyone now looked at her differently. I won't lie that I had a little iota of concern that she would do something crazy because the tantrum she had thrown at home wasn't quite the Brianna I knew. In the end, nothing happened. At least not yet. I called the event planner and told her to cancel everything related to the wedding. That part was heartbreaking to me. I'll admit, but I had to do it. Once that was done, I knew that she and I were done too. The best part for me is the fact that I'm taking her to court to compensate me for destroying my property. I asked her to pay up nicely, but she only called me some unsavory names. So I don't mind putting her through a little more stress just for the fun of it. She's going to have to pay for a lawyer, miss days off work, and hopefully in the end, having to compensate me for everything that she destroyed. And trust me, it was a lot. As for now, this is still pending, but I have been recording of her being a bull in a china shop, and I've spoken to my lawyer, so there really isn't anything to worry about. She won't be slipping out of this one. There's still a little bit of hurt in my heart, considering that something that I really had my hopes on isn't going to work. But I'm glad I found out the way she saw me sooner than later. I prefer to the pain now instead of a lot more pain much later. Anywho, a big thank you to all of you for helping me out, especially with my previous post. I'll be reading all of your comments here, so let me know what you think of how I got back at her. Brief update. Oh, and here's just a little update of anyone who might be reading this post at this point. I was awarded almost $10,000 for all the things that she destroyed in my apartment, including hotel fees because I wasn't able to sleep there, and professional cleaning fees because the entire place was a mess. The smile on my face was huge because there I was taking money from her after our split. I guess she should have been the one with the prenup.